So thank you all for being here. We have a quorum. And we have more than a quorum, so it's great to see everybody here. And for the public, forgive my back. But as you can see, some of you people have been, I was going to say old timers, but that some people have been on the committee for a long time. Remember when I used to sit down here, but at some point, someone in the city put me up there and I've always felt uncomfortable up there. So now I'm back down here with a hoi polloi, right? Yes, who I'm glad to be with. So thank you all for being here. We all have our agendas in front of us. We've just called ourselves to order. Thank you, Angela, for doing the meeting last time. I'm going to leave more often because you got a lot done quickly. So then there are the minutes of last meeting to read over. I will say that I did not look over them as much as I usually do since I wasn't here. So I'm relying on y'all to be the to make sure that everything was done correctly. I'll give you time to look at the minutes, and then should someone want to make a motion to accept them as presented, or if there are any corrections or additions, please note. And green light, right? Yeah, got your green light on.
The page 3, paragraph 10, there's a sentence that uses a lot of pronouns and they in particular, and the sentence should read, we owe it to them he said there were people who said these were the people who helped to build historic Charleston for no compensation during their lifetime, and that we should always remember that we were all living on what they had created.
So, sorry, Wilmot, can you repeat exactly which paragraph that is? But have you noted it, Philip?
I'm not hearing you well, huh?
Okay, can you repeat which paragraph that was in? Sorry, I can't quite
The
find it.
paragraph as it should read.
Oh, can you say which paragraph it's in?
Paragraph 10.
4 from the bottom, okay.
Paragraph 10, page 3. Do you want me to read the whole paragraph?
No, I just wanted to, sorry, I just wanted to.
I'll start from the middle of the paragraph. He said the commission would not be acting fairly if it did not try to raise those voices. We owed it to them. He said these were the people who helped to build historic Charleston for no compensation during their lifetime, and that we should always remember that we were all living on what they had created.
Have you found it, Philip?
That's
I've got it and I can put that down.
Okay.
That works for me.
Okay. Any other additions or corrections? Hearing none, does anyone want to put a motion in to accept the minutes as revised? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor, please say aye and or raise their hands. Aye. Any abstentions or nays? So I think we've done that unanimously, Philip. Thank you. The next order of business is new member introductions. Forgive me since I was not here last time. I believe, Elizabeth, you introduced yourself last time. Would people who were not here last time like to hear Elizabeth introduce herself again? Okay, okay. So you can be somebody else. And Elizabeth, if you turn your, right. Everything we're saying is so important.
I'm CEO of the South Carolina Historical Society right next door, and I have been in the position for just under 2 years, and I'm very happy to be on this commission.
I'm Brittany Lavelle Tula. I'm an architectural historian here in the city. I've been a practicing preservation practitioner for almost 15 years here. So I specialize in historic research and humanizing historic places for people and communities. I've worked with the city of Charleston on many different projects. We've authored the report on the Cumming Street Burial Ground. So those are the types of projects that I specialize in. I am a proud manager of the South Carolina Historical Society Board of Managers, and hopefully I will be an incoming board member of the Preservation Society. So I bleed history, Charleston history through and through, and I am honored to be here.
Thank you, Brittany. And Ken? Were you here last time? Okay. And if you push your green button, that one, the one on the right, your green light comes on and that means we can hear you.
Yes, sir.
You want to introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is Ken Scarlett. I'm, among other things, president of Charleston 250. Been actively involved in history in Charleston area. Authored the book Victory Day, Winning American Independence, which is all about Charleston's experience in the Revolutionary War from first protest to final victory. I've also authored many articles pertaining to the Revolutionary War in South Carolina. And I'm very pleased to be able to serve on the commission. I was actually on the other side of the rail a few weeks ago making a presentation, so it's nice to be on this side of the rail. Thank you for having me.
Well, welcome everyone. And I assume just for the sake of parity and politeness, if you don't know all of our names, why don't we just go around the room and say who we are? So Harlan Green, I'm chair of this commission. I followed Peter McGee, big shoes to fill, and I think I've been on the commission maybe almost 20 years.
Excuse me, I'm Peg Eastman. I'm a member of the commission. I forget when I got on, but it was very controversial. When I did it, I wondered what I had gotten in for, but it's been a real pleasure to be on the commission and a privilege.
I'm David McCormick, and I have been on the commission for a number of years. I also am a member of the Board of Managers at the Historical Society, former member of the the Archives and History Commission, and serve on the Palmetto Society Board as well. So lots of history.
Dale Teeling, I'm the former commander of the Washington Light Infantry and presently the chairman of the Board of Field Officers of the 4th Brigade, which the owners of Marion Square.
I'm Wilmot Frazier, and I am a historian and folklorist and a cultural specialist. My work has been mainly with musical culture. The author of To Be or Not to Bop, Memoirs Dizzy Gillespie, a noted South Carolinian and musical innovator.
Okay, so thank you. Welcome to all. And everyone returning, thank you all for being here. I think that brings us a segue into the next item on the agenda, which is basically protect and respect the bodies, basically an update and discussion as to what's going on. And if you'll indulge me, it might be appropriate to talk to maybe some of the new members as to how we got here and on this subject as well too. In the 1940s, when this commission was first founded, it actually was kind of a proactive organization. It actually picked out which buildings needed to be marked, and suggested things like that. I think those of us who've been on it a long time, and I think the longest serving commissioner is Mickey Rosenblum, who this is probably the first meeting she's ever missed. She had a variety of factors going on in her life. But I think through the most of the tenure of us being here, we had become more of a reactive organization, basically waiting for citizens to come forward with signage that goes on public property, and we were the ones that would act on, and rule on both the grammar and the historical accuracy. Where there were heated debates on the Denmark Vesey statue, there were very easy debates, with Mr. Scarlett's thing, going, I guess, into Liberty Square or somewhere else. And so but then at some point within the past few years, there had been discussions as to what our role is. I think this happened like with the Calhoun statue and a variety of things like that. Previous administrations had asked us to take stands and positions on basically just to advise City Council on historic issues. Should the Calhoun statue be lent to a museum in Los Angeles? Does the commission have a view on something? And so then we did actually present a few times at City Council. But then, like I said, there was, again, some discussion here among members. I think at a couple of meetings ago, we did actually look at the ordinance that drew us into, that brought this organization into being. And it does say something, while it does specifically use language being put on signs, it also does talking about some advisory capacity with very vague language. And so then a few meetings ago, we were asked, basically along with people from the Hart Commission, which is what Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission, and I think we have a member here as well too, to possibly work together in a statement or something regarding I guess we can call the Cumming Street Project, or Respect and Protect, Defend. And so then that's how we got here today. And so then I missed the last meeting, but I saw that y'all did take a resolution as to what this, committee should do, or some guiding principles. And what Philip sent you today by way of introduction is a very poorly worded resolution that I had passed on to y'all. We will not vote on it today because we need to have that information out there before, and you'll probably will have a copy there. Basically,
That's your second to last page in your agenda.
and again, also with information from that the Preservation Society had passed on, basically saying, and what I basically saying in that resolution for y'all to think about, maybe come back next month with the thought is, and if you'd like, I can find it and read it to you. I've got my copy somewhere, and excuse me as I do my. Yep. Being aware and proud of the City of Charleston's standard-setting role in the superb handling of the Anson Street Burial Project, the Historical Commission thanks the city for these efforts and encourages similar excellence in addressing and resolving the issue of the burial site known to be part of the 106 Cumming Street Development Project. This is a very long sentence. The next one, specifically being aware of the legal role that the city is mandated to exercise in any removal or disturbing of human remains, and knowing the city itself once owned and maintained this burial ground, and that there is significant community interest regarding the sanctity of the site, and that the members of the community have called for the city's presence in public forums, we of the Historical Commission encourage city leadership to be present and take part in forthcoming public conversations regarding the site. We see this as an opportunity for the city to build on past successes and have Charleston become a national role model as all work to a resolution that honors what is best for our citizens and those laid to rest at this site. We of the Historical Commission offer our services to the city in any way that can advance this goal. So I apologize that the reason prompted this is I could not attend the large meeting, I think on the 22nd, because it was religious holidays. And then I went to one that the College of Charleston held for students. And there was a very, very well-spoken young man named Omar Muhammad. And the question posed to him was, I thought it was a very conciliatory meeting, people respecting everyone and their varied opinions. And I thought and one of the questions from the audience was, so you say, Mr. Muhammad, that everyone should be at the table. Who do you see missing from the table? And I remember at a larger meeting at the college as well, too, people had asked if there were representatives of the city of Charleston there. And I could not identify myself that way because I'm just the head of a commission. I wasn't there in any official capacity. So that, frankly, is what prompted me to put a resolution before you. And I just want to say quickly that we are not voting on this today. We can vote on this next month, but I just wanted to explain why I came up with the language. And I encourage y'all to, think about the wording or think about anything else and come back next month to be able to that. And also for the very first time, this commission has been working with HARC, together to do things together, and they will be meeting again tomorrow. And we have someone here who will report out. I can't attend that meeting tomorrow in this chamber. They'll report out what this committee does. Again, we're not making a resolution today, but we're just discussing a topic. So after that very long-winded introduction, if anyone has any thoughts, discussions, and then we will recognize people from the public if they have anything they want to say. But again, I just want to make firm today that there's nothing that we can vote on or resolve today regarding this, but we can certainly discuss it. Dale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very interested in reading this in detail. I'm the kind of guy that likes to have access through a word processor.
I can, I sent it to Philip as a Word document. And so then
I did send out to all of us. It may have been through a PDF, but I can get it to you in Microsoft Word if that makes it easier for you to edit.
So, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So Philip, I got an email, right? I got an email about 1 o'clock or 1:30 today from Philip sending this along. And again, I can't remember if it was a Word document or a PDF. But again, so that's, if it's not already in your inbox, I'm sure Philip can deliver it to your inbox. David says a PDF, so we'll send it as a Word document. Brittany?
Thanks, Harlan. Can you confirm, or maybe this was already a conversation of what the city is legally bound to do in any situation where human remains are
So
found?
on the bottom of that resolution, it was the memo that the Preservation Society had presented to this body 2 or 3 meetings ago as a handout. And they specifically cite the statutes, yep. So again, they cite the South Carolina statutes on that as well. And I think that's part of the same thing as well. Is that correct, Philip? Yep. Yeah, actually, there's only 3 paragraphs, but if you look at the bottom of that page, that is just cutting and pasting from the Preservation Society summary of what the statutes are for the state and how the city specifically can weigh in. It was 2 meetings ago, at least, when we had a large public presence, and Anna Catherine Thomas from the Preservation Society spoke. And I know she did because I actually had a copy of it. It was sent to the commissioners, I think. I'm not sure if it was printed out or not. I can't remember, Philip. Okay. But again, so I just cut and pasted and put that on there so you would know that I'm not, if you did have questions, what are the mandates? What is the city legally mandated to do? That you would have the technical language there to help guide your thoughts and bring it up in discussion next month. The only other developments that I know is I did try to check with everyone beforehand. There is how do we get, the World Wide Web address for the protectrespectbodies.com is a place where you can go for reports, Brittany's report, and a variety of other things too. The College of Charleston also has a website as well. It took me a little digging to find those. If you'd like, I can maybe find that link again. And when Philip sends it out, he can send you maybe the link to both, if that would make your job easier. The College of Charleston does have, apparently sometimes this week, there will be a recording of that event that I went to at the College of Charleston about 10 days ago. It was, and again, it was mostly aimed at the students, but they did record it. And so then if people, and that's where Mr. Mohammed stood up and asked for city presence, which again prompted my resolution. So I was told by the college yesterday that that will probably be on their website, whose link we can send you. You know, it'll be on the website within a week. We can send you the website before that. So that should give this commission as much information as needed. And the only thing that I've heard, not confirmed yet, and people more aware of the technical language, apparently there was enough public outcry that what used to be, you know, Department of, our kind of Department of Environmental Services, DHEC, under the new name now, there is going to be a public meeting to discuss, you know, I think permission is needed to, I think, to even begin investigation of a known burial site. And so then enough people asked that that be a public meeting. So from what I understand, and I was told by people at the college, that it will probably be in November, date unset as of now, and on the college campus. So that may be before our next meeting, it may not. But again, that's one thing that's coming forward that I know of.
Is that the SCDES DCM meeting you're referring to?
I think so.
Was the meeting on the 22nd not a public meeting?
It was not recorded. From what I understand, it was on Cooper Street. It was in, you know, the city building with the smokestacks. Forgive me for not. St. Julian Divine, yeah. So was it in that building? Yeah. And again, we will recognize from, again, it was religious holidays. I could not attend. I understand, and correct me, that there was like sort of a charrette where people were standing and people were coming up and talking to them. And just for the public record, I will say that the College of Charleston, at the meeting that I attended, noted that they did not handle that particular meeting particularly well. I wasn't there, I can't say it. They kind of apologized for the way it was. And they did say, you know, that they will pay very close attention to the public. From what I understand as well, they did have a window open for a while, which you could nominate yourself to be on a committee that the college itself is creating for community outreach. I'm not sure if that window has closed, but so then the college is, you know, is reaching out and trying to get a community advisory board on there as well. And again, I'm just passing this on as information. And if anyone from the public has anything to add to that, if you'd like to speak, if you want to stand up and come to a microphone. Do we have a microphone? Okay, and identify yourself.
Mr. Chairman, before we go to public comment on this, I was reading over your statement, which seemed to be somewhat congratulatory to the city on its prior handling of these cemeteries, these abandoned cemeteries. And it occurred to me that the attention the city has paid to this issue has always arisen because of public interest. That is, people, the grassroots people, have brought these issues to the city's attention and demanded that that the city pay some attention. The fact that there are no representatives from the city at these public meetings, the administration or from council, I think is not a good sign that they recognize the importance of these issues. In addition, there is ongoing desecration of an old graveyard in by MUSC, by the Medical University, which is building on the B Street graveyard. And I think we need to request that the city pay some attention to this desecration and ask that the medical university, or request that the medical university take appropriate action to protect and respect the bodies there. It may be too late to protect those bodies. I can remember as a child in the 1950s walking up Ashley Avenue and hearing the pile drivers driving piles into the ground then. I didn't even know about graveyard being there at that point, but it is an example of the disrespect that the city has historically had for places where African-American citizens were buried, and particularly people who had been enslaved during their lifetimes. The B Street graveyard, I understand, is the final resting place of Denmark Vesey and the people who were wrongfully executed by the city in the Denmark Vesey trial and the state of South Carolina and Denmark Vesey trial. So it is something that I was a member of the committee that established the Denmark Vesey Monument, Spirit of Freedom Monument in Hampton, that now stands in Hampton Park.
Right.
But I didn't agree that it should go there. I thought it should go at Calhoun Street. But the fact is that that a monument was created. The rectitude of Denmark Vesey's life and his sacrifice was recognized finally by the city of Charleston. And I think that that is important morally and important historically for the city to do the same with regard to their final resting place. So I would ask the commission not to be too congratulatory
Okay, well then,
in its statement to the city,
so,
and the state, since they are, as we speak, in the process of desecrating another African-American graveyard.
and so then I mean, and again, so the ball is back in our court. We can't discuss this. We can discuss it. We can't vote on it today. So I'm gonna, basically, Wilmot, if you feel strongly about it, I do think you should reword that. And I want to work out a mechanism so we're not all here next month working on a variety of different drafts if everyone brings a draft in. So maybe respectfully, we could ask that if people do have a draft, that they send it to Philip. So again, maybe the 10 days before our commission, when we're sending out the agenda and that sort of thing, that if people have rewritten it, or if people want to do a subcommittee to write it together. I'm just trying to think of the mechanics of the next meeting, so we don't have 10 different drafts and we're all trying to combine them together. So I'm thinking on my feet, but if anyone has a better idea, please speak up, David.
2 points, or 1 point and 1 question. I think the issue of the cemeteries transcends race. If you go and look between Queen and Broad, there is a plaque on the public parking garage of a Quaker burial.
I remember, I watched them exhume those bodies.
And also at the Citadel Stadium, when they ended up finding a bunch of, I think they were soldiers,
Right,
who had been buried there.
right.
And so I think it's a very important point to say the city should take this seriously with regard to cemeteries. I don't necessarily think that it should have to be just focused on one group.
Right. And I think the issue among us is, and again, this is just a practical thing, do we want as a commission to take on the entire subject of cemeteries, or do we want to, and again, this is not a rhetorical question, or do we want to focus on this one project, which is coming up, but our language can reflect that. We could say that this is one part of a larger thing of cemeteries, et cetera. And again, I'm just throwing that as a tool out to work when we try to reconcile, our different versions of what inevitably is going to happen. I would just suggest that we try to be as brief as we can. When we do our rewriting.
And my question is, when the gentleman was talking, I guess at the meeting a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about city presence. Who's he talking about? Is he talking about staff from the city councilman, the mayor? Was there specificity with
Well, I
regard to
think-
who he was talking about?
So he just said, this is a direct quote as far as I can read, who is missing from the table. The question was, is there someone here from the city of Charleston? And I think that was raised because the city of Charleston can play a role in the disturbance of any human remain. Yeah, no, so,
I'm
right.
just wondering who he was talking about to be present.
And
Was
I
it
think
city
that's up to
councilman?
the city, and that's why, frankly, why I made my resolution as poorly worded as vague as it is, that the city should send a representative, whether it's a messenger, whether it's, someone from the planning department, whether it's whatever, so again, the city doesn't have to hear secondhand what its citizens are saying. So I would, and if you have a suggestion in your thing, I just don't know who would be I think the city's in the best position to decide who represents the city. So I didn't mean to take over the discussion, but I just wanted to bring everyone to date, since that's what we're doing, of all the information that I knew of what was forthcoming about this, since, again, our history seems to be changing. We seem to be taking a more proactive role than we have in the past, but which historically this commission did do. So you're on the commission at a good time. Mickey can remember when we had a budget,
Yeah. It's a small.
a small budget, apparently from the sale of the postcards, but anyway, yeah. So Dale,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned a lot of things in your comments, and I think some of them are worthy of a little bit of attention right now. And specifically, going back to Dr. Frazier's comments too, about the bigger picture. Obviously, the Calhoun Street, the YMCA, the current plans of the College of Charleston has to take front seat as far as our attention is concerned, and a resolution on that is important. And then you said, well, should we intend to later on focus more on the city's responsibilities in general? I think at this point, the two need to be separated, but neither one discarded. Primarily on the 106 Cumming Street question, considering the advanced state and date of the College of Charleston's plans to get started on construction or destruction, depending on how you look at it, and considering the complexity of the other grave sites, especially some that are currently being damaged, we shouldn't set it aside, but we do need to focus on the on the Cumming Street, corner of Cumming and Calhoun. We need to focus on that for this purpose, for this resolution, but have some wording in here saying that this commission recognizes that it's a broader series of concerns that I don't want to obligate us for the future, but we recognize that there's a past, there's definitely a present, and there's probably going to be a future on the questions of how the city of Charleston deals with recognized and unrecognized burial sites. Thank you, sir.
And I was not involved with the Anson Street Burial Project, except as an observer and in attendance of some of the events. But from what the community presentations that I saw, there seemed to be some kind of agreement from the community that the city really did handle that particularly well. And so then to me, that shows the ability to handle it well. So again, yeah, but again, Well, good. But again, I think these are things that we bear in mind as we go back to this. And again, if by the end of the meeting, if someone comes up with a better way to figure out how we don't bog down in the next meeting with X number of different proposals, trying to reconcile them all, please come up with that. Dave.
I have great confidence in Mr. Philip Clapper to receive and compile in a readable fashion comments from any number of people, and that he can identify in a strikeout and underlined document the commissioner who made such recommendation. Or,
And-
but I don't want to put him on the spot, but there he is.
I can,
But, you know, I would encourage people that if they possibly to limit the number of different proposals that we have to do. I don't think we have to be, you know, there's an open meeting policy. I think X number of commissioners could get together and draft something together if they wanted to present it as a resolution, as long as it's not a quorum.
I think perhaps one of the easier ways to do this is if you had specific points you wanted to get across rather than modifying the actual language. That might be easier to compile, and then we could all get back together and modify the language specifically. It's like, oh, I think this could, you know, a bullet point, something like that. If you feel really strongly about a particular piece of language, I don't think that would be objected to, but
Bravo,
something more like that instead of 10 separate documents would be easier to have done.
that's a great idea. And so then I will volunteer that if those bullet points come in 10 days before, and tell me about procedure, Philip. If those bullet points come in those 10 days before, and I try to draft language incorporating all of those 10 bullet points, and can that be presented at that meeting to be voted on?
If we can, if you and I and if you put it together into a single resolution, and then the commission agrees to it at that meeting, we can have it on the agenda beforehand as a point. Sorry, I'm losing my words, but as an actionable item on the
Right,
agenda,
right.
then you can take action on that at that meeting. The deadline, the absolute latest deadline would be exactly 24 hours before the meeting starts. So it'd be 4 p.m. on Monday. We don't want to do that. We want to have it, you know, preferably 10 days before, like we usually try to do, preferably a week before. At the very least, I'd want it done by Friday.
Right. So I would, Angela. Okay, I was going to say that I would just suggest that people get that, if they are going to do a draft, try to send it to Philip as early as possible so that a draft resolution could be put together 4 days or so before, like the Friday before the meeting. And the meeting would be the first Wednesday in November, which is at the 5th. I'm trying to remember. I don't have a calendar.
That is the 5th, yes.
Yep. And so then hopefully, and so then what's that Friday date, Philip?
The Friday before would be the 1st of November.
So we would want to email
Sorry,
that,
the Saturday.
right? Or, but still, or so the
31st of October.
Halloween, great. So we would try to have something hammered out, some kind of rough language that would do justice to the points that people had made. So maybe we would be working from one document instead of many.
That would work. And then if you wanted to revise during the meeting and adopt something as amended, that should work.
Okay. Does that sound clear to folks? Gosh, procedure more than content, huh? But hopefully that will spare us, you know, an unnecessarily long meeting next month. There is a book done by Michael Trinkley called The Silence of the Dead, which lists about 100 known, at least, cemeteries on the peninsula and maybe some west of the Ashley. And it's been out since 2005 or something like that. So yeah, this is very well known information. I don't know if there's a law that mandates them to do that, but that's certainly within, yeah, okay. And I'm not sure. Yeah. Right. I mean, I think that would tie in, again, a larger debate about an archaeological statute for the city of Charleston, which is an issue that we may want to take on at some point. But then also, I'm assuming, you know, if someone is buying a parcel of land, they're doing a title search on it, but Brittany, but I think like for title insurance, you only have to go back like 50 or some years or 60 years. So they are probably doing a title search, but if the cemetery is from the early 19th century, it's not going to show up in the title search unless there is some language carried on.
Correct. And I think also, I think that there is still development opportunity on these burial grounds. So even if they did find a burial ground or confirm that there was, as we can see, they still think that there is a way to still develop the land. So even if there was research on this is a burial ground, this is a burial ground, I don't think there's still ways to reinter and to develop. So,
Again-
but at the very least, just people being aware, I think, absolutely.
Right.
I mean,
At least, yeah, yeah. Oh, it's a microphone, sorry. Yeah.
Codifying it in some way so that this doesn't happen again. I mean, we all can't live this long. We could try.
Yeah. No, but again, even the Anson Street burial site was not tracked. You know, that was something that Mike Trinkley had not found. So,
Yeah.
but there's at least 100 or so that we know of. So yeah, no, you know, so I think it's excellent work. And I know the public library has a copy of it on the shelves. And it would be great if it were actually online at some point. But anyway, so any more points of discussion? Does anyone about, so I think we've got a plan for how to deal with a resolution that we will discuss next time. And again, open to it is doing it in bullet points. I'm just summarizing and maybe deciding, you know, as Dale said, you know, forest from the trees, focusing on maybe one particular project, but leaving the door open for larger ones, even larger ones, as you say, Angela, you know, about cemeteries itself. If the commissioners have nothing to say, then I can thank the patient members of the public. If anyone would like to make a statement. And again, if you would just come to the microphone and identify yourself, although we all know who you are, Millicent.
I don't normally do it, but Philip, I'd like to be registered as Dr. Millicent Brown. I've spoken before, but I don't think my academic credentials were ever recorded.
I've got that underlined for you.
Thank you. I'm here representing the coalition called Protect and Respect the Bodies. And I first want to say, in talking to other members of this coalition over the past several months, we're delighted to see the seriousness with which your commission is taking this issue. And we thank you for that attention because these are conversations that obviously needed to be held for quite some time and have not been. I want to clarify one thing about the committee that the College of Charleston has begun to create. A lot of community concern, as I think you can understand, as to whether the College of Charleston is the best group to have a full and honest and transparent discussion of these issues. But as a result of that last meeting that was held, um, um, and the apology, public apology that Dr. Shu actually offered for having not proceeded with this project perhaps in the way that it should have. I think that the confidence of the broader community has been uplifted a little bit. I don't think people are afraid that voices in opposition to the college are going to be kept out of that discussion. And in the very process of self-nomination meant that anybody who was serious about it really could submit. Now, we haven't seen who got selected yet. That is to be announced, I think, sometime in the next week. But I believe a number of people, probably with various opinions about this issue, did offer themselves up, myself included. And so we think there can be a robust conversation about it, provided that the people at the table bring not just emotions and sentiment, but also actual knowledge. And so we are asking that the college make sure, are we going to have engineers at the table? Will there be architects at the table? Archaeologists, but to just form a committee that would placate people and not really address the important issues to be considered and alternatives and all of the other things that have come up. We ask that you just appreciate the concerns we have, that it be done in a way that has real value, and to just say to you again tonight, there's a discomfort with acting as if this is the college's decision, because the city's responsibility is just too well embedded in it for this project and for the others that you've been talking about in the future. So I just want to say, we think that a committee that has no real power is not the most ideal approach, but it is step one, as long as there is representation of all the various factors. And we're looking forward to having that discussion with this committee. It's called the Community Engagement Committee. And that didn't go over very well with a lot of people, because it just sounds like another group to get together and chat. And so we are saying it's more like a study committee to really get at the heart of what is involved technically, historically, culturally, and in every other manner. Thank you for your concern and any efforts that you can make to make sure that we actually, as a city, come to grips with what we're looking at. I do want to add, with all of the great things that needs to be said about the Anson Street project, we were talking about 36 bodies. That is such a different issue than somewhere close to perhaps as many as 12,000. And so I just ask people to be aware, we cannot compare apples and oranges. This is a bigger issue that needs to be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. And I will just say, by way of information, that I did inform the college that this meeting was going forward, and I told them that we were not going to be voting on anything. And they did say, Mark Berry, who is the spokesperson, said he could not make the meeting. So I just want to say that they were willing and knew about this and wish they could make the meeting. But I think so, and they did say they had a conflict and could not do it. And just by sake of information, and I know it might and I know many people in this room would not agree with this, but I just want to repeat something that Dr. Bernie Powers said at the last meeting at the college, who I think tossed out a very philosophical point where he raised the question about African burial, was this the final site of rest? Because his thought was, and he left it as an open-ended question, his thought was that when these, and there probably were Africans directly from the continent probably buried there, that when they were buried in that piece of land, did they have the rituals? Were the ancestors represented, et cetera, at that ceremony of their interment? And is that something that if bodies are disinterred and moved, that could possibly put spirits to rest if it were handled in that way? But anyway, like I said, it's not necessarily a point that I share. I was very moved by it, but I thought I would just pass that out because I thought you probably don't want to look at that video of that entire meeting. But I thought it was a very interesting point that he had brought out. And do you think I got Bernie right? Okay, yeah. And we have another member of the public.
Hello, my name is Tom Orth, O-R-T-H, like orthodontist, just the orth part. And I am a retired college and high school teacher and basketball coach. And I am very proud to be on Dr. Brown's committee. And we have a lot of work to do. Everybody has a lot of work to do. I just wanted to, I have a folder about this thick on articles, our committee discussions and on and on. But I just want to tell you one thing that maybe you know and maybe you don't know. But I went back to the College of Charleston's Board of Trustees meetings, and it was on June 11th, 2024, June 11th, 2024, that the Board of Trustees voted on and passed a resolution to send on to the president to purchase the property, and this is all it said, at 99 St. Philip Street and 106 Cumming Street. That's all it said. There was one no vote, a gentleman developer from Columbia, he voted no, and a well-known Black attorney here in Charleston on the Board of Trustees abstained. Now, to my way of thinking, this was all kind of secretive. That's all it said. The property, we're buying this. And so that was in 2024. So to my way of thinking, that had to be looked at by the college at least a year in advance of that to study this. This property looks like it might be good for a dormitory, but so the whole thing bothers me from the very beginning in terms of what the College of Charleston and how they went about this. So I could go on, but I don't know if a lot of people know this fact. So thank you very much. And I'm a member of HARC, and so thank you very much for all you do. Appreciate it.
Just very quickly, I'm Bonnie Cleveland. I'm also a member of the Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission. And I think HARC was hoping to write a resolution with the History Commission. And so we would love to be included on that and coordinate with you all as well.
Well, thanks. I feel funny trying to get your eye and talking to this at the same time. That was one of the next things I want to say, that I know that that y'all will be reporting to HARC what happened at this meeting. And my thought would be is that if, HARC wanted to address some of that same language, send it to Philip as well as with the bullet points as well. Maybe our committees can work together. I think we always meet a day before y'all do. Is that correct? Y'all meet on, yep, yep. So, just again, to not borrow trouble, to coming up with two different resolutions, that might be a possible way to go forward. And I wish I cannot be at your meeting tomorrow. I have a conflict. But if you could convey that information. Anybody else from the public or Commissioner Dale?
Mr. Chairman, not to be a contrarian, but I think I'll be a contrarian. We have our own work ahead of us. We got a process, we got a plan, we got a good scrivener. At this point, I don't see the advantage of a cooperative resolution on this subject. HARC has its own responsibilities, its own membership, its own processes. They're certainly capable and able and allowed to make a resolution just as we would. So from my point, I would prefer that, with no offense to anyone, that HARC or any other organization recognized by the city or otherwise, comments would not be a part of developing our resolution. It becomes too complex. We have different purposes in life. Let's address our own. Thank you.
Well, I will say that it will be the majority that will rule, in this thing too. And so then I would ask this committee, and maybe David, do you want to address first before I rattle
Yeah, I
on?
just wanted to say, I agree. I mentioned that last meeting, that the way it was worded, it presupposed that we would have the ability to get a joint. In my view, and I even wrote it on here, there are different missions, different goals, and different agendas. And it seems to me that it would be better for each independently to propose whatever they want to propose to City Council or whoever we're going to be presenting what we want to do to.
Trying to play, and again, I think we can decide whether we want to do that. I'm assuming, Philip, we can decide whether we want to write, we're not resolving anything except what we're going to resolve. I think, but also I would throw as well too, is that if we come up with our own proposal and HARC likes it, they can add their name to it as well. And if HARC comes up with a proposal that we like, we could endorse that as well too. I think that is possibly as a way forward, that we would write our own proposal. And, we would not, we would present that and then another organization could say, we agree with it.
Well, authorship and what was the word you just used? Endorsement, those are two different things and certainly should be handled separately.
Right.
Thank you.
I think the endorsement could be really powerful, honestly. Like if we do come up with two separate resolutions, it might be like the power in numbers vibe. And if we can add a statement at the end of ours and you add a statement, I don't know how the resolutions typically have to look, that we, at the end, we agree or endorse said resolution passed by the other organization, the other committee.
Right. And I think that,
or something, whatever,
I think that would happen over time. And
Mhm.
apparently I think the college has revised its schedule that, I think things are going to take time. So I think if we do a resolution, then I think HARC at their meeting can endorse it. But I don't think, we have to have language within our resolutions saying, I'm guessing that would be a way to proceed.
And this doesn't preclude us reaching out to HARC members and asking them for their advice as individuals.
Right.
Before the resolution is filed.
Right. And if you see, like I said, your meeting is tomorrow, is it 5 p.m. in this room. So unfortunately, I'm involved in an affair at the Library Society. I can't be here, but you see how well attended the HARC members are here. So if anyone has time on their calendar, and wants to come back tomorrow at 5, I'm sure we would be welcome. So just throwing that out there.
The question of collaboration, I think, is mainly one of how do we relate to one another as committees or commissions in determining what the city's posture should be with regard to this issue. And our concerns should, of course, be guided by historical matters and historical discipline. Their concerns would be from another angle and more sociological and with regard to current affairs. But I do think that that the two may intersect at some point. And if they do, then we should begin to endorse or whatever language would be appropriate, the conclusions that and recommendations that they make for the city government to take. I'm concerned about it, as I said, because historically the city actually owned these graveyards. They did not, this is not something that they just have the ability to regulate, but they were the actual owners of graveyards. And so they are presumed to know or should know what has happened there and what should happen there. And their lack of interest, open disregard for public meetings on this subject seems to me to be terribly disrespectful for a city that's supposed to be take great pride in its ancestry and its history, and that lives in large measure on its history. So I think it would be important for city government to look at it rationally and to pay more attention to this matter, and that whatever statements we as historians make should urge them to do that.
Yeah. So it sounds like we're agreed that we will do our own proposal, but we will certainly be in communication with HARC, since we do seem to have an overlap in this and probably other things as well. Are there other points that people would like to discuss on this topic? Dale?
I'll ask a question because you made a comment about a speaker suggesting the religious aspect of the burial itself. And had it in terms of Africans. But of course that applies to anybody who's buried, whether it was done formally, informally, with a religious aspect or not. What do we know about that? I know if the answer's in the room, I'd love to hear it. But
Right.
what was done for how many thousand of burials?
Well, no, it probably a minimum of 4,000, maybe as high as other, and Brittany should answer this, and she authored the report.
Do we know, and was it consistent? I mean, I don't expect answers, but if there's a religious aspect and a spiritual aspect to a grave being removed, has that been studied? Do we know the particulars for the Charleston graves, both this one and the others that the city has historically developed and closed and sold? Do we know that?
I mean, I'll just say before Brittany answers that we assume that those cemeteries or graveyards associated with religious denominations probably had religious rites done on their two abandoned Jewish cemeteries on Hanover Street. But again, they were Jewish. I'm assuming it's the municipal and the pauper burials that are probably, and I'll throw that one to you. I mean, there's the amounts of what people were paid to dig graves, but is there information on services or?
They really only started creating ordinances and regulations. I think it's 1802, and this burial ground was active for many, many years before then. So what I have gathered in my own research, without putting an exact number, because truly we have no idea, is thousands, plural. Whether that means 12,000, whether that means 1,000. But we do know that this burial ground closed rather quickly following a reopening of the transatlantic slave trade into the city. So, and we know how many ships are coming in. And I think that's where the math comes from. We also know the dimensions of the graves starting in 1802, and that's also where the calculations come from. But I think it's also important to note that CFC is only going to be developed or proposing to develop on a portion of this cemetery. So who and what they may find underneath their property, I think, is just going to be a sampling of what and who are still underneath the other parcels. But I think what's really important part of this conversation is that without a doubt, there are going to be archaeological resources found that are not human remains, that are religious potential icons, clothing, things that will go along with burials that I think are going to answer that exact question.
Elizabeth, and turn your mic.
There's a very important precedent for all of this that was created in the early 1990s when a federal building project in Lower Manhattan in New York City uncovered a very large African burial ground going back to colonial Dutch and British New York. And this is a very, very long story, and I can send you all a summary, but what ended up happening was a decision being made that paleoarchaeologists exhume and study the remains so that they would understand both the physical impacts on people's skeletons of hard work over a lifetime and burial traditions and customs from the material culture that remained in the graves. And there is a very, very exhaustive report on, but this is late 17th century. This is a different time and place, but this kind of research is possible, but it has to be done with obviously care and permission and consultation.
And if I'm correct, Brittany, we do know that the cemeteries were segregated, that the blacks were separated from whites. And from what I understand, the part that the college is building on, we know specifically was, if not entirely, but the majority, the black part of the cemetery. So I think that's what triggered Bernie Powers' remark about the specific African burial custom.
In that
I think,
1802.
Mr. Chair, I think that's another reason that social science research particularly has an important role to play. In the case of the Anson Street burial ground, there was a significant amount of physical anthropology done. And that physical anthropology revealed a lot about the various ethnicities that were buried in that graveyard. It was in other words, there were people from Africa, and there were people who
Were born
came
here.
from Madagascar, and there were people from other parts of the African continent. And it was a very, very interesting mix of ethnicities in that graveyard. And the same may be true with these other graveyards, despite the fact that there were legal lines or legal boundaries drawn between quote unquote races in the case of the 106 Cumming Street graveyard and the B Street graveyard. You had many different kinds of people coming into Charleston, and they were thrown into categories. If they were poor, they went to the public graveyard. And these public graveyards therefore tell the story of what the real story of what the populations were like in earlier Charleston. And perhaps tell us something about what these people were doing here during that period. I remember even as a young child going to school here at Avery, anybody who wasn't white went to Avery. You know what I'm saying? Black, Chinese, Filipino. What if you didn't qualify as quote unquote white? You went to Avery. So there was a mixture of people there, even though this was a segregated, quote unquote, racially segregated society. So different story will come out of these graveyards, and we need to look at it historically and anthropologically, both from the physical anthropology perspective and the cultural anthropology perspective. There was very little cultural anthropology done on the Anson Street burial ground, and that was very interesting. I found it all of the remains were enshrouded, so they were buried with care. They, in addition to having been enshrouded, they were all were buried to the east. So to me, it seemed like a Muslim graveyard. Wasn't a Christian, wasn't a Christian graveyard. That was pretty clear. And with these different types of ethnic types buried there. So it was it's an interesting site that tells a unique story. I hope that we will do some cultural anthropology on the Anson Street site as well. But it's very, Charleston has some really interesting stories to tell coming out of these graveyards, and we should take care of them so that these stories can help to take care of us and future generations.
Brittany, sure.
Just one last thing as we begin to think about like our resolution to the city, I think it's really important, and this is in the report, that those that were enslaved by the city of Charleston are also buried in that public burial ground. So we have record of nurses at the orphan house. We have employees, any porters, anyone that was enslaved by the city within the city limits was most likely also buried within that burial ground. So that kind of links it even more than just the ownership as well. But
Yeah,
I
good
just
point,
thought it was
good
worth.
point. So those are all issues that we can think about when we do our bullet points. Any more thoughts on this topic? If not, I think we've got E, miscellaneous business. Anybody have any business to bring up under miscellaneous? Failing that, the next point on the agenda is F, adjournment. Do we have a motion? Yep, and seconded and carried. And thank you all for coming. This has been a very illuminating conversation, and